The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is September 2nd, 2024, and before I give the update within Ukraine, I want to apologize for being a day late, because I had a family barbecue for Labor Day, even though today is actually Labor Day, but they decided to do it on Sunday instead of Monday. And yeah, that was why I decided to hold off on the weekly video until today, which is Labor Day itself. But with that being said, though, I'm back, and a lot of things have happened since I've been gone. And for those of you who have been following my Twitter/X account, I've definitely given a lot of thoughts on the situation within Ukraine, whether it be in Kursk, in Donetsk Oblast, in the Zaporozhye sector, and even in Kharkiv. But yeah, anyway, let's break it down. So, starting off, let's go to the Zaporozhye sector, okay? Or the Zaporozhye front. So as you can see here, people, the Russians have successfully booted out the Ukrainians, for the most part, from the empty fields that were north, south, and west and east of Rybotene. And for now, the village is cleared, even though there have been some rumors speculating that the Ukrainians are going to attempt another counteroffensive in the area. Though I honestly don't know if they're going to really try another one at this point. But as far as I know, Rybotene is fully secured by the Russians. And yeah, no big changes on the Zaporozhye front. But Rybotene is the only place where there have been some changes here and there. But that's basically all there is. Now, to the Velika Novosilka direction. The Russians have made some gains outside of both the towns of Staromaysky and Orozhany. They took some new positions north of both towns, but again, not a lot. But then, if you move to the east, there's something going on here. In the village of Prichistivka. Now, this is part of an operation that will eventually result in the capture of Ugledar, or Vulidar if you're speaking Ukrainian. So, this village here, known as Prichistivka, most of it is under Russian control as we speak. Around 70 to 80% of it is under Russian control at this time. And I wouldn't be shocked if by tomorrow, all the village will fall to Russia. And also don't be surprised if the Russians move further west towards the other village of Zolota Niva. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is easily captured too. Which would effectively put Velika Novosilka within striking distance, even though the Russians can go for it if they really wanted to, but it doesn't seem like they're in any rush to go for Velika Novosilka. But yeah, so Prichistivka has fallen, and I believe it is part of a greater operation to capture the stronghold of Ugledar from the armed forces of Ukraine. Now, if Prichistivka falls, then the Russians are going to try to go up north and take the village of Novo Ukraina or Ukrainka, and then from there they will then go for the town of Boho Yavlinka. Boho Yavlinka. There we go. And then from there they can then flank Ugledar. So it's only going to be 2 more villages after that before then they could really take the town of Ugledar itself, which is made up of a crap ton of commie blocks. Now, this may look small from the satellite imagery, but in person, Ugledar is huge. Literally huge. The high-rises are really tall. Really tall. It housed a total of 10,000+ people at its peak. But now that the town is destroyed, nobody literally lives there anymore except for the outgoing 72nd Mechanized Brigade, which had been rumored recently to be departing the town of Ugladar itself. As far as I know, the Rada is virtually destroyed, and yeah, there's pretty much no governance in Ugladar left, so it's just basically just a bunch of military guys there trying to defend the town from the incoming Russian offensive. But yeah, so the battle for Ugladar is on, and this leads us to this coal mine here, which is mostly under Russian control, even though they don't have the high ground yet here, this Terracon or this waste heap here. But once they get a hold of this area, then the Ukrainians in Ugladar are already cooked. And I also heard rumors that Vudain, like the northern part of the village, is under Russian control, though there is no confirmation yet. And the clashes have yet to begin for the southern part of the village. But yeah, the Russians now have majority control over the 00532 road, and this was the main supply route to Ugladar before the Russians have cut off most of it. And speaking of which, Konstantinivka, not the big one outside of Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, but the one near Ugladar, has fallen to Russia. Konstantinivka fell to Russia earlier last week, around the same time when other settlements within Donetsk Oblast were falling to the Russians, which I'll discuss later. And with the capture of Konstantinivka, basically the Russians will be able to clear out this area here, though there are reported fortifications here that make it a little difficult for the Russians to use the 00532 road. But now that Konstantinivka is under their control, most of the road is going to be under their control, and they should be able to supply the troops that are going in and out of Ugladar. So not only has the battle for Ugladar started, but in a way maybe so has the battle for Karakove and Velika Novosilka. But time will tell for sure what they're going to do in Ugladar, though I don't honestly expect the Ukrainians to actually fight for it. I think they're going to evacuate it rather than contest it, because there's literally no way to supply the town now that the main roads have been cut off. There's just no way they're going to be able to do it, especially when Russia gains control over the surrounding settlements in the area. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to Krasnogorivka. So the Russians, as you know, control the main part of Krasnogorivka already. However, they do not control the far north areas, like these remaining blocks here. Those are still under the AFU control. But that, though, is set to change very soon with the taking of Karlovka, or Karlovka. This was one of many fast takeovers by the Russians during the recent week. And with the fall of Karlovka to the Russians, they literally now control both banks of the Vovcha River, both left and right bank Vovcha River. The Russians should be able to force the Ukrainians out of Novelsky. And as a result, far north Krasnogorivka should easily fall to the Russians without much of a fight. And as a result, also, this entire empty fields area, all of this is going to fall under Russian control too. So they'll have to evacuate to Hiernik or Giernik, or they're going to have to evacuate even further towards Pokrovsk, which I will get to in a moment. But yeah, the Russians have taken the strategic town of Karlovka, along with Dulinivka and Halitsnivka, and are forcing the Ukrainians to fold back from this area here that is just north of Krasnogorivka. But yeah, so that's it for that portion of the front. Now let's talk about the big elephant in the room, Pokrovsk. So, oh boy, since the last video I made, the maps didn't look anywhere like this at all. The situation has completely changed in favor of the Russians. The Russians recently, as I mentioned, they took control of Karlovka, Halitsnivka, and Dolinivka, but they also took control of Memrik, Kalinove, Piche, Skuchne, Mykolaievka, These two waste heaps here, Marinivka, Mykolaiivka, they also took control of Zurakivka, or Zurivka, Krutiyar, Krasnyar, another Mykolaiivka, most of Grudivka, the old one, and the big fish itself, Novogrudivka. This one came as a huge shock to everybody, especially in the pro-RU circles. Novogrudivka only took around 3 to 4 days for the Russians to conquer. 3 to 4 days! And what's worse is that they have also taken control over most of the waste heaps too in the area. So now they have a good view of both Pokrovsk and Myonograd. And also, with the taking of Novogrudivka, it allowed them to enter another strategic town. And this is arguably the second or the third big fish in this area. Seledove, or Selidovo. Now, as you can see according to this map here, the Russians control around 40% of Seledove. They control basically around half of the southern area, and they control around maybe 20 to 30% of the northern area too. They are apparently duking it out for the commie blocks right now, which is going to be very difficult now that the 72nd Mechanized Brigade was rumored to be heading up there. But yeah, so the commie blocks are currently being contested right now, and as soon as this massive series of commie blocks falls, all these high-rises go down, it's already over. The battle's already won for Seledove, and the Russians will then just either go west, either towards Pokrovsk. Wait, that would actually then be north. Or they could flank Pokrovsk and maybe try to enter Dnipropetrovsk, but I doubt that's going to happen. Instead, what I think the Russians are going to do is go south, because they want to secure the flanks before they go into Pokrovsk. And then after that, they're going to try to take control of the towns of Girnik or Hirnik and Karakivka. And also, perhaps, maybe they will try to flank Karakove. But I don't think Karakove is going to happen until Ugledar is secured. But yeah, I also heard reports that the Russians have already taken the village of Lysyivka from the Ukrainians, but there's no confirmation yet. I even heard reports the Ukrainians have already abandoned Ukrainsk without that much of a fight. But again, I don't know how true these reports are, but I'll keep you all updated on my Twitter/X account in the event that Ukrainsk or any other major settlement falls. But for now, we don't have any confirmation of those reports. So yeah, Novogrudivka literally steamrolled within a matter of days by the Russian army. And apparently, from what I understand, the Ukrainians are finally pushing the panic button, and they're bringing in all their reserves into Myonograd and Pokrovsk. Which means that we're probably, this winter, going to get a Artemovsk/Bakhmut 3.0 in Pokrovsk. Meaning that you're about to see a long, dragged-out battle that's going to probably result in the deaths of many people. Well, men, like soldiers that are actually fighting on the front. Many of them are going to be killed in this battle. I can guarantee that. And as for Seledove, I don't know how long it's going to take. I think maybe another week or two, but we'll just have to wait and see. Maybe they might drag this long like they did in Volchansk, but I don't honestly think that's going to happen. Maybe realistically, this town might last another few more weeks, if not like 1 month, but I just can't see Seledove holding for much longer, considering how fast the Russians managed to not only take the outskirts of it, which is Mykolaiivka, but they also took the crucial waste heaps as well. So they got a good firing range position over Seledove, and they're already within like 40% of the town itself. So it's already cooked. There's nothing the Ukrainians can do at this point. So all they have to do is either hold the Russians down or fall back. They cannot counterattack and retake the town. It's just not going to happen. But yeah, as soon as Ukrainsk falls, then Girnik and Karakivka are probably going to fall too. And then all this area, like, it will be gone. Along with this whole area too, once Ugledar is gone too. But yeah, things are getting uglier for the Ukrainians in the main Donetsk front. It really is. And as a result, Donetsk City is probably going to get safer too. But meanwhile, in the Donetsk direction, I almost said Donetsk front or sector. Sorry about that. The Russians are making gains here too. They have taken a crap ton of Dakas, and they've also have taken some high ground positions too. They have also advanced into more of the industrial sector, even though there's going to be another one here, which is going to be pretty difficult. But as far as I know, the Russians have taken pretty much most of, if not all of the main commie blocks in Donetsk, and they're getting closer as a result to downtown Donetsk, which is right here. And they're also getting close to this other waste heap here, even though they've already taken the main waste heaps that overlook Donetsk. Now, I don't know how long the battle for Donetsk is going to last, but if I have to be honest with you guys, I think it will last for another, 1 or 2 more months. Maybe by late October, maybe Halloween, or perhaps November, it will fall to Russia. But Donetsk is not going to hold for a long time either. I mean, now that the guys are being pulled into Pokrovsk, I don't know how Donetsk can hold on. Especially with the news coming out of Chasiv Yar, which is really not good news for the armed forces of Ukraine. Apparently, the Russians have taken more control of this area here. They've taken, let's see here, Chakalova Street, even though it's not yet confirmed, though I'm reading that some mappers have marked it down as under Russian control. And if this were to be true, then the Novi neighborhood here within Chasiv Yar will be cut off, and thus more than 40 or almost 50% of Chasiv Yar will be under Russian control. And then it will bring the Russians ever closer to the difficult commie block area, which is the center part of Chasiv Yar and the highest of the high ground in Chasiv Yar as a whole. The Russians have also reportedly crossed the Sovietsky Donetsk-Donbass Canal again. This time, they seem to be taking a second crack at, Kalenia's right bank, I think. And holy crap, I didn't know these guys had a Rada. This has to be one of the smallest Radas out there. Wow. But yeah, they're taking a second crack at it, and maybe they're going to try to flank Chasiv Yar's northern part from here. I guess from this giant junkyard here, which would then allow them to enter the northern part of the town. And then after that, they should be able to take the rest of it, though I don't know how long it's going to take. I thought Chasiv Yar was falling as early as September, but I don't think that's going to happen. It may take another month or so, but Russia doesn't seem to be rushing it. In the Siversk direction, the Russians have taken Vinka, while also losing the village of Ivano-Dorivka. I don't know how they lost it, but the Ukrainians have retaken the village, which should buy them some time, but unfortunately for them, they are losing some territory in the village of Perizhny, which will eventually result in the Russians getting ever closer to another major target for them on the Donetsk front, which is the town of Siversk. A town that Russia was sought after during the 2022 summer campaign when they took Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, but they got stalled after Bilogorivka. And speaking of which, the Russians have reportedly advanced in Bilogorivka, but they haven't really gone any further than that. And as a result, the Russians have been stuck in this part of the front for quite some time now, even though it is now slowly moving again. But again, just like Chasiv Yar, I don't think it's a big priority for them. It's just not. In the Kupiansk front, the Russians and the Ukrainians are moving a bit. The Ukrainians have reportedly advanced on the village of Tabaivka, though none of this is really confirmed by other mappers except Syriac and maybe Deep State. But the Ukrainians are making an advance here, but I feel like it's too little too late for them because the taking of Pischane has really taken its toll on the front in Kupiansk. So you not only got 1, but 2 and 3 villages that are now under the threat of a Russian takeover. And these were all places, by the way, that the Russians used to control before the infamous September 2022 counteroffensive in the Kharkiv or Kharkov Oblast. let's see, I'm trying to pronounce the name. Sorry if I get my Slavic wrong here. Kralevkivka is threatened. So too is Kolesnikivka. And finally, Hlushkivka. They are all under the threat of a potential Russian takeover, which would then bring the Russians, for the first time in a couple years, to the Oskol River. Well, in general, I mean, I know they're already up there, like very far up north. They're already on the Oskol River, but this would give them a very comfy position on the Oskol River. It would. And breaking news coming in from a place that we haven't heard in a very long time, Sinkivka, the most well-defended place in the entire Kupiansk section, has reportedly fallen to Russia. Now, even though the southern part of it is still marked as a gray zone by Syriac, the main part of the village is under Russian control, and with that, it will bring the Russians ever closer to the suburb of Pavlivka, which is the town outside of Kupiansk. Now, I don't know how long it's going to be before the Russians do enter Kupiansk, but I'm expecting it to be maybe later this year, maybe during like the fourth quarter of 2024 or perhaps early 2025. But with the fall of Sinkivka, the Ukrainians have lost their best barrier against the Russian troops, who have been trying to get back into Kupiansk for a couple years. But yeah, so things are not looking good for the Ukrainians in the Kupiansk sector, especially in Donetsk. Now, there is good news, though, coming in from Kursk, though, for them. It's mainly, though, from the northern section. They have captured Orlovka, Novia, Sorchina, Mariivka, Pogribki, Steria, Sorichna, Nikolaevka, Malia Lochnia, and they had to fight off for this prison in order to get complete control over it, so that took them a while. And Viktorovka. The Ukrainians have also tried to attack the town of Korinovo a few times, but they were never able to get their hands on it. And there's also a report that the Russians have retaken the village of Olgovka. So there is promise in the Korinovo part of the whole Kursk front. But otherwise, though, the Russians are struggling to contain the Ukrainian advances, though they don't seem to be anywhere close to their goals yet of I guess, pinning down the Russians, like at the nuclear power plant outside of Kursk City. And they also don't appear to be anywhere close to their goal of taking Lvov too. And because of the recent reports of this advance, the Russians have reportedly started building defense lines from Rilsk all the way to Kursk to defend all these major settlements within the oblast itself. And because the surprise element is no longer there anymore, I'm not expecting the Ukrainians to make any major advances in the foreseeable future, even though I'm expecting them to continue making maybe small to medium-sized advances, but I don't expect them to make any large gains in the foreseeable future. And also, it appears that the Russians have secured Glushkovo from the Ukrainians, and this comes as a surprise to many because a lot of people thought that the Ukrainians were just going to steamroll this area, but it appears they have not been able to so far. But for all we know, they could attempt to do it, and they could easily take everything there. But for now, though, the Russians seem to contain the Ukrainians within Kursk Oblast. Well, partially, even though they still have some work to do. But, as I said, they got them contained. They're forcing everybody to come back to Pokrovsk from Kursk. And they're also working on Chasiv and Toretsk as we speak. And especially Toretsk and Ugledar. So yeah, so that's going to do it for today's Hague video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it all informative. And take care of yourselves. Stay safe. And have a great day. Peace out. Bye-bye.